Hey guys, Aaron from the Ballpit here, back with another reaction video. Today I will be covering America Must Be Colorblind, which is a 5-minute video from PragerU. I have to do these 5-minute videos because if I tried to react to something that was even like 20 minutes long, I would never leave this chair ever again. So let's get into it. America Must Be Colorblind. So I guess going into it, my initial thoughts. I haven't watched this video yet. I don't watch any of the videos I react to before reacting, because then it wouldn't be a reaction, because I'd already know. But, I mean, colorblindness, obviously, you know, there's like a literal meaning of being colorblind, like I'm red, green colorblind or whatever else. I'm actually color deficient, believe it or not. So I'm not colorblind, like I can see red and I can see green, but it's inner shades, like different shades of green. It's hard for me to tell the difference, different shades of blue, it's hard for me to tell the difference, etc. Anyways, colorblindness essentially means where you don't see race. You don't view race as an important social construct. And you basically go about life as though everybody is just a gray man, essentially, which is a good movie with Ryan Gosling. All right, stop talking about shit that doesn't matter. Let's just go. Let's go.
America must be a colorblind society, or it won't be America.
What does that mean?
There will still be a country that borders Canada and Mexico and sits between two oceans, but it won't be the nation envisioned by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence.
You mean the guy that owned slaves, right? Like, you're saying that America must be colorblind because that's what Thomas Jefferson said when all men are created equal in the Declaration of Independence. But Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, so obviously he saw color because all of his slaves were black. So, I mean, automatically your point is kind of dismounted just by the very fact that there's racially based slavery. And I know there's going to be people in the comments that are like saying that not all slavery in the world was just black people, I understand, and not all slavery in the United States was just black people, I understand. But at a certain point, especially when the Declaration of Independence was made, that's what it evolved to, is a racially based slave system.
Or Frederick Douglass in his What to the Slave is the 4th of July oration. Or Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address, or Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech.
Don't talk about him. We've already covered Martin Luther King Jr. in another video on this channel where you fucking hacks at PragerU tried, you know, talking lies and slander on his name. So I'll link that video if you guys want to watch it. It's a good video, I think. I mean, I'm biased because I made it, but, you know. But also, you know, I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on Frederick Douglass's specific thing, but, like, you know, Abraham Lincoln, for example, wanted to free the slaves and then send all black people back to Africa. He actually, you know, he wanted an androgynous white nation, and he wanted all black Americans to be sent back to Africa. So even Abraham Lincoln was not colorblind. There was no time in American history where especially early, because we're talking about foundational American history, where we were truly colorblind. Let's be honest here. Let's be honest. It's a bad faith argument to try to pick and choose little spots in documents in American history instead of the actions of the people that wrote those fucking things.
Until recently, every school child knew what it meant to be colorblind. But that's no longer true. So I'll explain it. To be colorblind is to be guided by the belief that immutable traits, such as race, tell you nothing important about a person. The color of your skin...
It's not that the color of your skin tells you, like, personality traits or stuff like that. Like, it's not like, oh... Like, let's dip into some stereotypes here. Oh, because this person's Asian, they're good at math, right? Obviously, that's dumb, right? Obviously, that's dumb. But to ignore the realities of race and how different it is living your life as a different race, whether that's white, black, Asian, you know, Latin, whatever else, no matter what your race is, your social realities are very different. you know, and it's not even just saying that's an America thing, you know. As you can see, I'm white. If I go to Nigeria, for example, I'm probably going to experience different experience than if I was black. Here's another example, right? My sister, we adopted from China. When we adopted her, she was 7 and I was 8. When I went to China, I got stared at in public places, and random Chinese citizens would come up to me to touch my hair because it was blonde. And it was summertime. It was August, so my hair was even blonder than it is right now because my hair gets blonder in the sun. You know, and that's just a minimal thing. I was 8, so I don't remember that too much. I remember that happening, but I was with my parents and stuff like that. But, like, you know, that's different. If I, you know, was Chinese and didn't have blonde hair, had black hair, I wouldn't have experienced that. So on a base level, your race doesn't tell something, you know, immutable about yourself, about the person, but it tells about their experiences that they've had to experience in society. Because believe it or not, depending on your race, you can have different experiences. People will treat you differently. That's the biggest one. Honestly, that's the biggest one. People will treat you differently, and that's in all walks of life. You know, interactions with potential employers, interactions with teachers, interactions with friends, interactions with neighbors, interactions with law enforcement, everything. All can be different depending on your race, your religion, stuff like that. So it's, you know, being colorblind, what you should be if you're colorblind is ignoring stereotypes so you can learn about somebody individually. You know, that what they're saying in that regard, that paying attention to the individual, of course that's important. Overlook the race, talk to the person, learn about them. Everybody's unique, everybody's different. But don't ignore the race in the sense that you deem race unimportant. As much as it should be unimportant, it is not. And you should always be able to acknowledge the social realities.
Important about a person. The color of your skin is as meaningless as the color of your eyes. What matters are your actions. No one said it better than Reverend King. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Yes, but again, it's still important to recognize the social realities. The reality of the situation is that race does matter. You have different experiences depending on your race. It's the reality of the situation. So telling people to ignore that, and when people bring up differences based on race, to ignore that is not solving things. Obviously, the end goal would be that race is just another unique difference between people. Like if you have curly hair, straight hair, blue eyes, brown eyes, whatever else, that's ultimately what you would want race to be. They're right in that regard. However, ignoring race in every instance is not the way to go about that.
King said those words in 1963. By the time Barack Obama became president in 2009, King's dream had been effectively realized. Yes, there were still individual racists, but racism was dead, universally
What do you mean racism was dead? Like, what are we talking about? Are you on drugs, sir? Like, how is racism dead? You know what? Let's pull up some numbers right here. Let's pull up some numbers. Actually, you know, we'll pull up some books. You know, I'm a reader. I like books. Let me grab some books. All right, I think this is enough books to kind of get the job done, to make the point I want to make. Some of these I'm going to talk about a little more than others because, you know, I do know that my audience of people watching this are probably primarily conservative. So like a book like this by this author is not going to be taken in the same way as other ones, because I know conservatives really don't like candy. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. But that's a good book, in my opinion, about the development of racist ideals in the United States. I also know that a book like this is probably not viewed as positively either. Neither would something like that. So I just wanted to show those so people know I've read them. and know that they do take part in my ideas, but those aren't the ones I'm going to talk about. I feel like those are talked about a little too much. So I got this collection of 3 books right here. Let's start with this one. By one of the greatest sociologists ever, possibly the greatest American sociologist ever. This is a great study. Basically, what this is a total analysis of the 6th Ward in Philadelphia back in the 1800s. And it talks about a lot in the ways of the differences in race. And the question is, how do those differences come up? This book is probably one of my favorite sociological texts, racial texts ever. It is called The Color of Law, made by Richard Rothstein. He's a great guy. I don't know if he's a great guy. I've never met him. But he's a great writer. I really like his books. And what The Color of Law talks about, if you... Can you guys read it if I put it all the way up here? Yeah, you can. A forgotten history of how our government segregated America. And if you can't tell by this color with the reds, you can tell that this is a book about redlining. Now, why is redlining important? What does it mean? I'm going to give you guys a short analysis. If you want more, I suggest reading this book or just looking up the book on YouTube, Color of Law, Richard Rothstein. He has a couple different, free seminars, which is honestly the best shit ever. I know that a lot of people don't read theory or whatever else because it's not super accessible. Reading this isn't the most entertaining read you'll ever make, and books are obviously expensive, but all you got to do is literally go on YouTube and look up Color of Law, Richard Rothstein, and there's multiple hour so long seminars of this guy talking about the book and giving you all the information you need. It's completely free. So I highly recommend that if you want to learn more, but I'll give you a little description of my own. So essentially what redlining is, and what Richard Rothstein describes, is it is the government attempting to disenfranchise black families by not allowing them to procure loans for housing and stuff like that, which essentially pushes black families into either being perma-renters, so people who are only able to find housing by renting, which obviously is not the best economic format for it. Obviously, owning property is one of the best investments you can make. So it prevents them from owning property, which prevents the inflation of the value of that property, which prevents generational wealth, or it pushes them into Section 8 housing, which continually have problems with the value being lowered due to crime in the area, not being able to have it fixed up, etc., etc., etc. So in that regard, there is racism. There is racism. And this was after Martin Luther King Jr. Redlining was technically made illegal in the 90s, though there's still reports of it being around today. But the 90s isn't that long ago. And then there's also this great book, Black Scholars in White Space. I also really like A Black in White Space by Elijah Anderson. Is also another great book. And that talks about the realistic differences that being, Elijah Anderson is a black male scholar, and he talks about his experiences personally dealing with systemic discrimination, because in his claim, there are a lot of spaces in this country that are labeled as white spaces, education or universities being one of them, obviously except HBCUs, and what that means is that, if you are black, you have to kind of conform or act a certain way or be mistreated. So there's a lot to go off of here. But to say racism is dead just doesn't sit right with me, because it doesn't feel truthful. And if you really want something to show that I believe this to be true, and I found it by looking at this website right here, which takes a meta-analysis of Spiel experiments, which shows no change in racial discrimination in hiring over time. I don't have tons of time to read the whole thing because I do, work full-time and I have to go to work soon. But the significance at the top of the document says, many scholars have argued that discrimination in American society has decreased over time, while others point to persisting race and ethnic gaps and subtle forms of prejudice. The question has remained unsettled due to the indirect methods often used to assess levels of discrimination. We assess trends in hiring discrimination against African Americans and Latinos over time by analyzing callback rates from all available field experiments of hiring, capitalizing on the direct measure of discrimination and strong causal validity of these studies. We find no change in levels of discrimination against African Americans since 1989, although we do find some indication of decline in discrimination against Latinos. The resulting document a striking persistence of racial discrimination in U.S. labor market. So this, I've pointed out at least 3, I think, different examples of this point not really being truthful.
Discredited. No one who espoused overtly racist views was taken seriously in America. And then they were. Why and how this reversal took place is complex, of course. But if we were to ascribe it to one recent event, it would be the death of George Floyd. Floyd, a black man, died while in police custody in May 2020.
This is going to be interesting. So you're saying that reverse racism, I'm assuming, so like black on white discrimination, like discriminating against white people, started after George Floyd, started in May 2020. All right. Hey, I'm all ears. Let's see what's happening.
On the heels of Floyd's death, issues of race preoccupied the nation. A new vision of America was emerging. Colorblind was out. Anti-racism was in.
Colorblind was, anti-racism was a thing for ages before George Floyd. For example, this book right here, Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi. I don't know if this might be a little too small for you to read. Is it? I think so. Oh, can you see that? Come on, focus. Anyways, this book was published in 2016. And this book talks about anti-racism and speaks out against colorblindness. So the idea that George Floyd was just this catalyst that spawned anti-racist ideas out of nowhere is not really truthful. Was it a catalyst that helped people already talking about anti-racism to be platformed, to be given a voice to speak about it, and people to actually listen and pay attention? Possibly you can make that argument. But to say that they spawned out of nowhere because of George Floyd is incorrect. And also, I struggle to see how the term anti-racism is a bad thing. Aren't we all against racism? Who is not against racism?
And what is anti-racism? Here's how Ibram X. Kendi, a professor at Boston University.
Well, that's awkward. I just pulled up his book. Yep, the conservatives hate this guy. They hate Kendi. They hate him.
And the leading figure of the anti-racist movement described.
I don't know if he's the leading figure, but all right, I'll allow it.
The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. In other words, only by discriminating against whites can equality be achieved. How long will it take, and who determines when the goal is reached?
So first of all, Kendi did say that. I don't agree with it, but he did say it. But second of all, Kendi actually makes a number of good points about it. Everybody makes good points and bad points, right? Nobody is perfect. Sometimes they say things that I disagree with. I will come out and officially say that I disagree with that point made by Ibram X. Kendi. However, there are points I agree with in Ibram X. Kendi, which is the importance of being an anti-racist rather than being not racist. To actively fight against discrimination rather than just disavow discrimination. I do agree with that. But I'm curious to see, I forgot this gentleman's name in front of me, but I'm curious to see what his points on what actions are being taken against white people look like what they even are. Because, as a white man myself, I don't feel like I've been discriminated against. in the past couple of years.
No one has ever bothered to say. White Americans, anti-racist thinking goes, are either flat-out bigots or undeserving beneficiaries of past and present racism.
Okay. Yeah, the second point makes sense. I don't know if undeserving is the best word to use because it kind of sounds targeted in a sense. Like this person personally isn't deserving of good things, of benefits. But the idea is that in this country, white people have benefited from the color of their skin. Of course, there's going to be examples of poor white people that live in, like, you know, Appalachians or something like that don't have the best lives, right? Nobody's saying that every white person in the United States lives the best possible life. But the idea is that, you know, white people historically have benefited from being white.
The system is rotten to the core, thus the commonly used term systemic racism. For Kendi, race explains everything. This is critical race theory, or CRT. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, is another expression of the same idea.
If you want to know my perspective on it, race doesn't explain everything. Economics does. And as a sociologist, we learned about something, I think it's called Indra's net, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Indra's net, which is a metaphor used to describe the intersectionality of different social concepts. So here we have, in this hand, we have economics right here, right? What intersects with economics is race, culture, history, psychology, you know, all sorts of different stuff. Geographic location, you know, drug use, all sorts of different stuff. Everything intersects. I personally believe that the middle or the foundation of that intersect is money, is economics. I believe that everything is based on that. Some people believe that race is the more so the foundation for stuff like that. It just goes to different ways of thinking. You know, I don't believe that you should totally write off a way of thinking just because you disagree with it. You know, a lot of conservatives try to do that with Marx, which, you know, if you know anything about sociology, Marx is like a cornerstone of it and has been used as a basis to explore more and more. So, yeah, I guess that's really what I had to say about that.
If you're not seen as white, your race explains every personal failure. And if you are seen as white, your whiteness explains every personal success.
That's not true. That's just not true. That's blatantly putting words in his mouth. And so you give me a clip of him saying that, I don't believe it. Because from everything I've seen from Kenny, he's never said that. And it's not true. Of course, there's personal success, you know, that has nothing to do with race benefits. And there's also personal failure that has nothing to do with race obstacles. In the same way that white people can fail, even though they're white, and people of minority racial status can succeed, even with possible racial obstacles that may exist, such as economics. When we're talking about redlining, which is why black families, you know, are lower economic class status than white families on average. It's not because of personal choice. Because here's the thing about personal choice, right? Of course, personal choice is important. You have the ability to choose things and make decisions. But whenever you notice big picture differences between groups, right? So, for example, you notice that black families, on average, are a lower economic class than white families. You can't put that down to personal choice. Because it's not looking at 1, 2, 3, 10, 100 people. It's looking at millions, right? And when you look at millions of people, personal choice and individual cases become minute because you're looking at the big picture. So when you're looking at big picture differences, the reason that they occur is big picture problems, not personal individual choice problems.
Your character doesn't matter. This is the exact opposite of colorblindness. You can't follow Kindy's anti-racist philosophy and, at the same time, endorse King's I Have a Dream message.
Yeah, you can.
One judges people by their race, the other by their actions. One loathes America, the other has faith in America. One has no finish line, the other does. In a short period of time, the new racists have created an entire industry devoted to promoting race.
Also, again, we've talked about in the Martin Luther King video. Go watch it. King ended up saying near the end of his life, like, oh shit, it's not working like that. It's not that easy. So you're blurring the lines of what King has said quite a bit in this little video.
Race consciousness. It has spread like a cancer into virtually every university and corporation in America. The University of Michigan has a DEI staff of 241 and an annual budget of $30 million. Also,
what does that mean? What does they have a DEI staff mean? I don't understand what the problem is here. Colleges famously don't spend money on good shit. Like, ever. I'm a college... I used to be a college student. I'm graduated now. I used to be a college student, man. Kids, all the time we talked about how the shit was so fucked. We're like, you want to hear some real shit college kids talk about? There's no fucking way the food they serve is worth the amount we're paying for it. There's no fucking way, dude. Like, come on. If you've ever been to I went to a state school, not like a community college, basically one step up, because I wasn't going to spend money by going to like some fucking fancy liberal arts college or like Penn State or Ohio State or some shit like that. And we're all just like, there's no fucking way the food costs that much. College is the same as any big enterprise like that. Spends a bunch of money on shit that ultimately doesn't help as many people. But, at my college, which is a small college, like 6,000 people, we did have like a diversity department, and they were cool, man. I talked to those people, like the staff there. They're cool. They did cool stuff. They did fun stuff. Like, I didn't have any problems with them.
Supposedly to root out racism at one of America's most liberal colleges. Name a major corporation, and it probably has a fully staffed DEI department. Okay. It's even infiltrated some elementary schools, where students are encouraged to sort themselves by race. How do we restore the colorblind ideal?
Well, he's talking about, he's like, do you know that there's a teacher in elementary school? I can barely even say it. There's a teacher in elementary schools that makes them sort themselves out by eye color and then treats one of them differently. And then the next day switches it up and treats the brown eyes better than the blue eyes when the blue eyes were treated better the day before. Like, what are you talking about? Sort themselves out by race. You can't just say that shit. What does that fucking mean? Does that mean they sit on opposite sides of the classroom? Do they have separate classrooms? Do they have separate lunchrooms? Are they not allowed to drink from the same water fountain? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Like, this is just purposely vague.
How do we restore the colorblind ideal?
First,
we must understand that America's founding principle that all men are created equal, as Jefferson put it, is colorblind. That's why Frederick Douglass implored us to stand by those principles in the Declaration and the Constitution. Be true to them on all occasions. To be colorblind isn't to be ignorant of the role race played in America's past. It's to learn from that past. And the lesson is, people shouldn't be judged by their skin color. To think otherwise doesn't fight racism, it promotes it.
So, he said that being colorblind isn't forgetting about the past, but learning from the past. However, if you take sociology courses, you understand that the reality we live in is based upon what happened in the past. The past isn't something that is left in the past, it's something that is built upon, is the foundation for what we live in now. So, this book right here talks about the history of redlining, how it came to be, how redlining is the next logical step after like sharecropping and shit like that after in Reconstruction era America, and how it's continued to disenfranchise black families and what the modern realities of that are. History and the past is not isolated. We are not free from it. What happened in the past directly impacts the world we live in right now.
That's what Lincoln was getting at when, during a bloody civil war over the issue of slavery, he said at Gettysburg that America...
Whoa, buddy. You're supposed to say states' rights, man. You're not supposed to say that they fought over slavery. Wait a minute. The conservatives are just coming out with it. Good job, man. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You know how many conservatives hit you with the states' rights issue? This guy said it like it is. I like this guy. I didn't really have too many problems with this guy through the video. Sometimes during these PragerU reactions, I end up not liking the person that's talking, but this guy's all right. I don't have a problem with this guy.
Civil War over the issue of slavery, he said at Gettysburg that America would experience a new birth of freedom. To regard skin color as meaningless is not only the American ideal, it is the human ideal. Why would we discard this belief for something so narrow, bigoted,
I'm sorry,
and phony as
cutting
anti-racism
his face off,
and its equivalents, CRT and DEI? To be American is to be colorblind. Full stop.
No, it's not.
I'm Archie, professor.
The history is such, which the color of law is a good one. Stamped from the beginning is a good one. Philadelphia Negro is a good one. The history of America and the ideals of America are not based on colorblindness. That's just not accurate.
Philosophy at Colorado State University.
Wait, hold on. What do you teach?
Stop. I'm Archie, professor of philosophy at Colorado State University and author of The Virtue of Colorblindness for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video.
So he's a philosophy professor. What is his name? Archie something?
Blindness for Prager University, Colorado State University of Philosophy at Stop. I'm Archie, professor.
Archie. Let me hit this guy with a little Google search right quick. Let me look up Archie. Archie, author. He's professor of ancient Greek philosophy at Colorado State University. Received his PhD from Duquesne. Specializes in the history of ancient Greek philosophy and ancient Greek political philosophy. His latest research focuses on methodological issues in Plato and Aristotle. Huh. Interesting that this guy's writing about like modern race politics when his emphasis, like his specialty, is on ancient Greek philosophy. That's interesting. When he said philosophy, I was like, I can see it. And then I see ancient Greek philosophy. I'm like, I don't know if I see it anymore. I don't know if I see it anymore. But whatever, man. You know, people can have hobbies. I ain't mad at it. Doesn't have a Wikipedia page, though. Sad. Oh, let's see. Rate my professors. Oh, my God. Oh, he actually has really good remarks. Very lecture-oriented and professional. Expects participation in class. Nice. Facilitate good learning. He's a great professor. Helps in office hours. Gotta read. Grades on attendance. I like that. What are the bad reviews? His lectures tend to be dry. I don't know if I see that. He seems pretty interesting enough. His grading criteria is very confusing. He has no rubrics, and the reading is repetitive and boring. He enjoys philosophy, but doesn't know how to teach to STEM honors students that aren't philosophy students. What do you mean? Learn shit. This isn't fucking high school. If you're a STEM student taking a philosophy class, you better fucking figure that shit out. He talks at you a lot, so you can get away with not reading, but there are random group discussions, and he doesn't follow his syllabus. Well, you should be reading. You shouldn't be trying to get out of the reading. May feel out of place if you're not a philosophy lover. Nonetheless, the content is really good, but I only felt this way when I started reading the textbook. The lectures are pretty dry, especially if you didn't read the chapter for class, so fucking read the chapter. Thoroughly understand the study guide before the test, and you should be fine. Try not to fall behind. So that complaint is just like, I can't slack. I have fascinating material, good professor. I have no issue with thinking philosophically, but this course can be difficult if you do struggle with that. Need the text. He's mostly helpful in answering questions. Take attendance usually, so show up. Why would you give him a 3 if he selects good material, is a good professor, but you may struggle if you can't think philosophically. If you're going to take a philosophy class, you should be able to think philosophically. It's a needed skill to fucking pass the class. His handwriting is not great. You gave him a 3 point... Man, this rate my professor shit is bogus. You gave him a 3.5 out of 5 because his handwriting is not great. That's the only fucking argument you have against him. Like, come on, dude. Like, what are we talking about? Dumb as shit. This guy's fine. I have no problem with this guy. I don't agree with him, but that doesn't mean I dislike him. He's fine. I would have no problem with that guy as my philosophy professor in college, but he'll never be my philosophy professor because I'm out of college now and I don't go to the fancy liberal arts school that he teaches at and won't ever go to a fancy liberal arts school that he would teach at. You know, if he wants to come by to some random school out in central PA, maybe we can talk, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. Oh my God, 40 minutes. Fuck me, man. Why do I always do this? All right. Bye, guys.